We often think of video games as fiction, but the US government has weaponized them to advance its agenda. Nowhere is this more clear than in Venezuela, where the US military has laundered regime change propaganda through some of the world's most popular first-person shooter games. This March, amid a US-backed right-wing coup attempt overseen by the Donald Trump administration, Venezuela saw a sudden collapse of its electrical infrastructure, plunging the country into darkness. This is renewed focus on the role of video games in psychologically conditioning users to support Venezuela's destruction, and in foreshadowing specific events that have taken place during the coup. Venezuelan citizen journalists Orlenis Ortiz and Sancocho Power have drawn attention to the similarity between the plot of a 2013 first-person shooter game, Call of Duty Ghosts, and alleged acts of US sabotage against Venezuela that took place this March. Call of Duty Ghosts is set in a dystopian future after the Middle East is destroyed by nuclear weapons. A Venezuelan general comes into power, establishing a socialist-style federation that spreads across Latin America like a disease, uniting all oil-producing nations and expelling US citizens. You, as the player, are part of an elite force of US commandos that invades the country, murders the socialist leader, and destroys his federation. The US Special Operations Forces open their assault by launching a rocket at a dam that looks strikingly similar to Venezuela's Guri Dam, an act of deliberate terror that floods the streets of Caracas. The city is recreated in vivid detail, all the way down to the Chavista graffiti that colors its walls. The mission ends with the execution-style killing of Venezuela's leader, who's shot in the back in slow motion by America's finest. And in case you weren't sure about his commitment to socialism, that leader's wearing a red beret, just like Hugo Chavez did. During a follow-up mission, the player returns to Caracas, breaks into a power plant, and inserts a computer virus into the electricity grid, plunging the city into darkness. Call of Duty Ghosts is not the only game that gives players the opportunity to simulate the destabilization of Venezuela. In a more crudely designed 2008 first-person shooter called Mercenaries 2: World in Flames, a populist billionaire named Ramon Solano takes over Venezuela in a coup and pledges to restore the country's oil profits to its people.
It is time the Venezuelan people stop paying for the greed of foreign interests. We will make them pay dearly for our oil. From this day forward, everybody pays. Viva Venezuela!
Everybody pays.
Gamers get to play the part of Matthias Nilsson, a European sociopath who's willing to kill anyone if the price is right. Under contract from a multinational oil company, Nilsson tears Venezuela apart and ultimately winds up blowing Solano's brains out inside his palace, a place that looks suspiciously like the 4FA compound where Hugo Chavez worked when he was president.
It's bad for business.
So is this. Now I have to kill you.
Like so many first-person shooter games, Call of Duty and Mercenaries 2 were developed with substantial input from America's military intelligence apparatus. Back in 2003, at the dawn of the so-called War on Terror, Pandemic Studios, the company behind Mercenaries 2, was subcontracted as part of a $45 million endeavor formed by the Army 5 years prior to connect academics with local entertainment and video game industries. A decade later, Call of Duty designer Dave Anthony was enlisted by a former Pentagon official named Stephen Grundman to advise the Art of Future War project, an initiative of NATO's unofficial think tank in Washington, the Atlantic Council. The project also sought advice from Oliver North, the right-wing military fanatic, who is convicted of a felony for his role in destabilizing Central America during the 1980s.
I'm Lieutenant Oliver North, your instructor.
In fact, North was credited as a military consultant for the 2012 Call of Duty Black Ops, and made a cameo appearance in the game.
Lieutenant Colonel North, NSC.
Chillingly, One future war scenario envisioned by Anthony was an assault on Las Vegas, similar to the 2008 terrorist attacks on Mumbai.
Get down.
Makers of a Call of Duty sequel openly boasted of working with a Pentagon advisor. So did the attack on Venezuela's electricity grid and hydroelectric dam, depicted in Call of Duty, forecast another future assault? Venezuela's government and millions of the country's citizens certainly think so. Here's Senator Marco Rubio on March 7th, openly calling for widespread unrest across Venezuela just hours before the hydroelectric dam at Guri collapsed.
Is that not ultimately what needs to happen here? The combination of widespread unrest, loss of military and elite support, and continued international pressure. Over the next few weeks, Venezuela is going to enter a period of suffering no nation in our hemisphere has confronted in modern history.
For Venezuelans, this is no game.